Question is going to be, what was the revenue profile for Safaricom in Q4 of 2020? Richie, if you could give us that data before we introduce the story that we have for you this morning. And you can see M-Pesa revenue continues to contribute mostly for Safaricom, and mobile data is again now emerging as one of those areas again that were the biggest contributors to Safaricom's revenue in Q4 of 2020. If you go back to 2020 again, the entire of their performance, if you look at what the biggest indicators were again in terms of their performance, you will see that service revenue was among the biggest ones as well, with their free cash flow also being among those that you have to talk about, but also the income really quite on the point that you have to talk about this morning under their performance. Good. Now, Kenya's listed Safaricom, telco Safaricom, has seen its value on the Nairobi Bulls hit a new high as demand for the telco's stock continues to grow, with its valuation at the Nairobi Securities Exchange rising to 1.476 trillion as of last week, Friday. Its share price closed at a new average all-time high of 36 shillings and 85 cents, which represented a 7.6% gain on the year to date. Now, this trend has helped push the total market capitalization on a one-year high of 2.43 trillion shillings, with the market capitalization now accounting for 60.7% of the total investor wealth at the NSE. Analysts have tied the telco's rally to continued demand for the stock due to expectations of the company's relatively bit better earnings compared to other listed firms, with its coming after announcing that resumption to transaction charges in money transfers has seen them recover from the downturn experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. To help us go through what has been yet another jump for Safaricom, we're joined by Gabriel Mwendwa, his investment associate, Horizon Africa Capital. Gabriel, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Simba. How are you?
I'm good. Talking point here is that we could celebrate Safaricom achieving this share price of 36 shillings and 85 cents. But another talking point could be that now they account for 60.7% of our boss's wealth. What for you could be a talking point, Gabriel?
Well, for one is, I think, yes, generally across most African economies, actually the telecommunication companies actually do contribute a very significant market share in their respective economies.
Yes.
If you look at Angola, if you look at Nigeria, all of these countries that are actually very big still have their telcos as very dominant players, but not at 60%, because what you would expect to see is at least the banking sector or the finance sector in overall taking at least 40%, which is what I've seen across most African bosses as well as large economies. So if Safaricom is already taking 60, then what is left? What does that mean for manufacturing? I mean, Kenya is not heavy on commodities, because if you look at the other bosses, let's look at the other big ones, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, they all have a component of oil or minerals.
Yes.
So South Africa has the diamonds, etc. Nigeria has oil, Angola has oil. So those companies tend to have those minerals. But Kenya, unfortunately, we are more service-based. Our key exports, tea, unfortunately, do not take up something big. So really, we are left to the telcos and the financial sector. Our manufacturing sector, unfortunately, just keeps lagging behind. It's really failed to pick up. So Safaricom will continue to be a big player in our market. And I don't think it's the worst thing to happen, because, I mean, there's a lot of liquidity on the stock. That's the beauty of it. I mean, the ownership of the stock is widespread.
Yes.
So everybody has the opportunity to get a piece of the cake. So, yeah, at least there's that upside.
Gabriel, I like the way you're saying that it's not a bad thing, But when somebody looks at our bills, Gabriel, and there's one company that is 60% of the entire wealth, what is the general sentiment about? It can't be just positive.
Yes, definitely. It can't just be positive. Like I mentioned, what it says, what does that say about the banking sector? For example, if you look at the trading ratios in the banking sector, they're all trading at either at book value or
Yes,
below book value.
yes,
But if you look at other bourses, or even if you look at the global market, we see banking sector stocks trading at 2 times their book value. If that were to happen in Kenya, definitely Safaricom would not even be over 40% at most, because so it's really again valuation, what is happening in the African market. There's just a way we value our companies that people tend to buy what they see more. So people see a lot of Safaricom, and
yes,
then again, remember, people were expecting Safaricom to be heavily hit, which did not happen. Yet yes, it took a hit, but not as much as people expected, so that's why you're seeing the price increase. But again, it comes down to valuation. People do not understand, even the literacy comes in, because we do not understand proper valuation of companies. If you are to look at the banks, ideally they should be trading at higher multiples.
yes,
But because of Safaricom actually is trading at ridiculous valuation multiples. The valuation is quite high. And that's because people are familiar with the company. They see a company that speaks wealth. It's a rich company. So, that's the sentiment that people have. But in terms of return wise, there are very many companies that can actually beat Safaricom at the bows. So if you look at dividend wise, Barclays, I'm sure, would beat Safaricom flat. Williamson, TE would beat Safaricom flat. If you look at about upside value, the likes of Center might compete. So there is a lot of good companies, but it's also an education and understanding issue, because people do not know how to value some of these companies. So we'd rather go with what is easiest for everybody. So we are competing for the same company, yet we have good opportunities that are still there.
yes.
But yes, again, we still have a problem at the bows in terms of investor education, in terms of how strong these companies engage with potential investors.
Pretty much. All right, Gabriel, just because of time, I would like us to jump into the last issue that we have for you this morning. It's now emerging that nearly half of the government ministries, departments, and agencies are yet to publish their tender details in designated public procurement websites, despite existing directives to do so, which puts questions on the procurement processes in government agencies. Now, in 2018, government agencies in the country were directed by the head of public service, Dr. Joseph Kinyua, to publish tenders information on the 15th of every month to reflect the basis of awarding the tenders, parameters of assessment, names and details of the tender committee members, as well as the value of each contract. Now, a recent report released by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority now indicates that the official procurement watchdog that the most state agencies were yet to conform to the directive in 2019-2020 financial year, which saw tenders worth 232.77 billion shillings published on the online portal. Now, the report read, and I quote, "The authority has continued to monitor implementation of these directives through preparation of reports to Parliament and the National Treasury and planning. Despite this, the level of compliance has continued to be poor. Among the state agencies and parastatals which have defied the order include the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, the National Youth Service, NYS, the Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS, and the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, KEFIS, and the Kenya National Examination Council, NEC." Let's not go into details this morning, Gabriel. I mean, even the president called for there to be a realignment in the tender processes in the country. Then, Gabriel, we have this headline that majority and the biggest are yet to confirm. In just a few words, what does this mean to you, Gabriel?
Well, first of all, coming from Kiteta location in Makueni County, I do not understand this problem, because my county has all the tenders published.
Yes.
So that's really the government problem. And if a county can actually achieve this across all its departments, it tells you it's just a lack of will to actually do it from some of these agencies.
Yes.
Because of obvious reasons. I mean, if you look at what it means to publish, you have to publish up to the final beneficial owner of the companies that do secure these tenders. And we know in Kenya there's a lot of business for lawyers, for judges and magistrates in the tender cases that are won, because you literally can stall a project by just taking it to court for 2 years, and therefore you secure yourself a negotiation out of court.
Yes.
So it's a whole business on its own. I don't like using the word cartels, but there are henchmen around the procurement system in this country.
Yes.
We do applaud what the Senate has done, what the Procurement Authority has done, and they are doing their best. But I think, again, it has to come from the executive that, it's as simple as a phone call from the president to the central bank. I mean, I want this done this week. It's just documents being uploaded. They make it look like it's magic, but it's not. It's simple. It's not even science. It's not even an art. It's just work, So it's just
Gabriel,
lack of sheer will.
Gabriel, somebody's going to ask you, I mean, if this was a biggest drive to digitize the procurement processes in the country, and especially the ones that touch on government entities, Gabriel, because, well, the president came in and said, well, I want to take the one that you don't like using, I want to take out cartels from this process. Everything is going to be clean and clear. And then you find a State Department like NYS that is not, again, publishing, and we do know the headlines that have been surrounding them. Then why don't we say that around these procurement rules, then we should introduce punishments around them?
But who will you punish, Simba? We've seen government officials taken to court and then they're not. So think about it this way. Can you summon a minister to court, and will they appear? They have shown us very clearly in the past that they will not. So if I cannot summon your boss, I can only summon a procurement official who takes orders from 10 people over and above him, then it's a problem. And then you're actually resulting in further problems, in paralysis in these agencies. When you take away 3 procurement officers and the CEO, there's actually a big vacuum in that agency that ends up stalling actually for quite a while. And those cases are swept under the rug, and it goes on. So we just need stern guidelines, and like you said, punishment might work, but directed to the right people. That's really what we need to do. Punishment directed to the right people. We have to have the people who are taking ultimate responsibility, because a procurement official is more than happy to comply, but you will find that there are other reasons why they're not being let to comply. Because, for example, if you're asking me to exclude 10 out of 100 tenders, publishing them, and they're the biggest, what then am I supposed to do? So as Kenya, we know what's happening with our tenders and public procurement, and we know there are a lot of personal interest in this space. So punishment to the right people, maybe it will work, but it's a very simple job. So if the government is serious, let them just do it. Otherwise, we can find better headlines.
Pretty much. Gabriel, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to speak to us here at Metropole Television. We do appreciate your contribution, sir.
Thank you, Simba.
All right, and on that note, it's a good morning.